Welcome to Books and Brews Light, number 68 with Calvin Schwartz. Welcome, Calvin. And normally I ask guests to introduce themselves. That's, I think, almost a little bit of a challenge for you. You have so much going on in your life.
There's a lot going on. I mean, I could do it. I've been doing it a long time. I can put together a couple of minutes. I'm happy to. So
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I went to Rutgers College of Pharmacy back in the '60s, and I wasn't put on this earth to be a pharmacist. There was something in my belly that wanted to do something else, something creative. I didn't know it, so I became a pharmacist because I had a very overbearing mother. She pushed me into pharmacy. I did it for 12 years, and because I'm very spiritual, on February 3rd, 1981, I listened to this little voice that I heard that said, "No more pharmacy, Calvin." So I just got married. My wife and I, we bought a house. We got married, and I informed her that morning, I'm quitting my profession. And of course, she said, "What are you going to do?" I said, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just can't do this anymore. It's not for me. So and it's funny, at that exact second in time, the spiritual element, there was a radio commercial we were listening to. It was a Sunday morning, and it said the Edison Valley Playhouse here in New Jersey was having tryouts for a play called Frankenstein. Now, you can't tell, Laura, because I'm sitting down, but I'm 6'5". I'm a big guy. And I thought this was divine intervention, that I'm going to become an actor. So I actually drove to the theater. They gave me a script. I went on stage, and I read for the part in the play. That was, again, February 3rd, 1981. I'm still waiting to hear if I got the part or not. I'm assuming I didn't.
I think that's a safe bet at this point.
So I sat home for 6 months, and actually my marriage was kind of unraveling because, my wife's teaching, and I'm just watching soap operas and stuff. One Life to Live, General Hospital. And then I had a relative say, "Cal, you got to do something. I'll get you a job selling eyeglasses." So out of desperation, not really wanting to do that, I took a job selling eyeglasses. And there was a little communicative spark. Gee, I like talking to people. And I did okay with this company. And within a year, I built up a nice reputation here in New Jersey. So I was offered a job with a startup company as a new division with an up and coming company called Luxottica Group. I took that, and my first year with Luxottica, I was #1 in the country, and then soon thereafter became a regional manager, and I stayed with them 25 years because I loved them, and I loved selling, and I took 50 courses in selling, and I watched my boss, because I spent 25 years there, become the richest Italian in the world. So I saw all the things he did and the thinking processes and all the things they did. So Luxottica went on to become the biggest eyewear company on the planet. They now own LensCrafters and Pearl and Ray-Ban, and basically everything globally in the eyewear business.
That's amazing.
And I, saw it all, and jumping the gun a little bit. Well, I won't jump the gun, but so near the end of my time there at Luxottica, I'm almost done. Because I'm spiritual, one morning I couldn't play tennis, and I didn't know what to do with all this unrequited energy. So something came over me and said, "Go watch the movie Casablanca." I had already seen it back 24 years ago, 50 times. I watched it again near the end. Humphrey Bogart shoots the bad guy. It's 1942 in French Morocco. And Claude Rains, a wonderful character actor, picks up a bottle of Vichy water. Actually, that looks like this. And anything in 1942 with the word Vichy in it generally meant you were conspiring with the Germans. It was bad. He throws it in the garbage. The second I hit the garbage, I grabbed my head and I yelled, "Oh my God." And my wife said, "Well, you all right? What happened?" I said, "There's a novel in my head." Now, I never studied English. Everything in my life was always science. So I came down here, sat in this chair, Laura, and 5 years later, this got published, Vichy Water.
Yes. And tell
yes.
me what the book is about and how it connects to Casablanca.
It there are two characters in the beginning. One is very similar to me, and who's a fan of Casablanca, and it just loosely connected to Casablanca. And this is 24 years ago. I don't remember a lot because I never read it again. But with the thing with this, and I do nothing with this. They're all in my garage, actually.
Hmm.
This became a spiritual vehicle for me to completely change my life around. Completely. And I mean, if you had a few hours, I could tell you some of the nuances and
Yeah, I'd be interested to know. So was it the writing of the book or the subject matter?
it
What
was
what changed your life?
it was neither. It was the fact that I wrote a book that was so
Hmm.
far removed from who I am and what I've been my whole life that I wrote a book. So after this got published, what I've come to learn spiritually, and I've had this amazing spiritual journey. Why, we can talk about it later. Why I wrote Pope Leo, because it's a
Hmm.
fascinating, healing, amazing journey, and which caused me to write my next book. But this became the vehicle for me to completely change my life around. So 15 years ago, I was 65. You can do the math. I was 65, and I said to my wife, I said, you know what? I love Luxottica. I've done it all. I think I'm going to retire, and I think I'm going to devote my time to maybe writing pursuits. So I
Hmm.
started 15 years ago from Luxottica. I loved every second I was with them. And out of the clear, random blue universe, I suddenly became a journalist, knowing nothing about journalism.
Who were you doing journalism with?
I got a job. I got a couple of gigs here in New Jersey, writing for a couple of magazines. And then
Hmm.
as I'm doing the magazine gig, I met Kurt, the owner of NJ Discover, a production company, and it was instant chemistry and just great vibes. And before I know it, I'm a journalist with NJ Discover because now they're doing journalism. And before I know it, I'm now producing and co-hosting a cable TV talk show here in Central Jersey.
Hmm.
And at our peak, we're bringing in some national guests. I had Gilbert Gottfried, who was a pretty famous comedian at the time. I had Frankie Previtt. He won the Academy Award for Dirty Dancing, the music. Tim Wright, whose locker was next to Tom Brady. And, I'm doing all these things that I was
Hmm.
trained for. Never had a clue
Right.
what to do, and I'm doing them. And I'm learning about music. And before I know it, I'm co-hosting a radio show called Rock on Radio. Know nothing about rock music. And of course, I live two
But
miles.
you learn,
I learned.
and I think that's you talk about this sort of thing in your book, 10 Things I Learned from the Billionaire, about not waiting till the time is right, not waiting till you have all the skills. And more people need to remember that, that you can jump in and you can learn.
Correct. There's no There are no limitations. There are no time
Mhm.
limits on anything. I'm just going through the motions and doing all this stuff. There's no plan.
Mhm.
I was blowing, as Peter, Paul, and Mary sang. I was blowing in the wind. And
Right, right.
I know you're a
Well,
musician because I know you got about 80 instruments in your house. Because I watched.
how did you learn that? You must have listened to an interview or read something I
I
wrote.
did. I did listen to almost the entire interview you did with David Goldberg, another musician,
Okay.
which I enjoyed
Yeah.
tremendously. That's why I did my thing. So I'm doing all these things, and one thing leads to another. There's no game plan. I'm just doing these things, whatever is coming natural.
Hmm.
And then I wanted to give back to my alma mater, Rutgers, because I love my
Hmm.
alma mater. And I started mentoring students. And I guess when kids find out there's somebody who can relate with them, and I'm doing journalism and media and communication. So at my peak, before the pandemic, I was mentoring 14 kids. I was driving back and forth
Hmm.
to campus, 3 times a week, hanging out in the diner, mentoring students, and then that piece of energy got seen by a professor, and before I know it, I was offered a teaching position at Rutgers University. So at
Uh-huh.
74, 6 years ago, I started teaching, at Rutgers University when most people my age are already learning how to play golf.
Right. That's amazing.
Started teaching, and I loved it. And from the teaching, I then met Dr. Gloria Bachman, kind of world famous OBGYN, and she was the head of the Women's Health Institute at Rutgers Robert Johnson Medical School. And bing, bang, suddenly I'm on the advisory committee of the Women's Health Institute, where honestly I did not know a lot, especially about women's health, but I'm learning. Then I did that, and then I started my own podcast, as I mentioned, because I had to do something during a pandemic, and it was just an innocent little thing to do, and that was 5.5 years ago, and now I've got 800 interviews, and
which is amazing. And I didn't do the math. How many per year is that? It's to be close to every day.
Videos, so it's both on YouTube. So sometimes I would do, sometimes I would actually do 4 or 5 a day. That's crazy. When I was involved with the Garden State Film Festival, and I'm interviewing actors and actresses and directors and composers and screenwriters. You gotta, and it's got to be done with a certain period of time. So I sit for 12 hours a day and do 4, 5, 6 interviews a day. So there's no rhyme or reason, and there was never a game plan.
Right. Well, I find this interesting, and I want to segue into another thing that you've talked about, and that is my husband and I in the last 4.5 years, we've gone from complete suburban urban living. We like to go to 7 in Minneapolis, which was just an amazing restaurant, seven floors of different types of cuisine, a rooftop restaurant. We like to go to comedy clubs, we might even go to the ballet or things. And we made a complete overhaul of our lives from suburban to more self-sufficiency. So now I've gone from playing harp. You can't really see it on the camera, which is probably best for everyone. But now, my nails are they're full of dirt today because I've spent the last 3 days preparing the garden. We have about, 33 sheep. And so, instead of playing harp, I'm now schlepping food for the sheep. And part of how this was going to segue into what you've talked about is I've been trampled by a ram, just knocked flat on my back and run over from foot to head. I don't know how he didn't plant a hoof in my mouth or my eye and do serious damage. I was nearly run over by the UTV one day at malfunction and started rolling backwards, and I was directly behind it, like my hands on the back. Somehow I got out of that. Now you have had several such. I forgot. I was also bitten by the dog. I got in between a dog fight, so now I have permanent teeth marks in my arm. You've had a few such experiences of amazing, complete non-injury from things that should have.
Right.
And tell us about some of those.
Sure. They've been, and when things are happening, you don't, when things began to happen, you don't process, they just happen, and you take whatever happened and you stick it in your back pocket and you go on with things until such time in your life, there's a pattern. There's a pattern of things, and then you realize there's this tremendous spiritual component of your life, which I had never known until such time as it became, totally evident. But years ago, in 1974, I was a pharmacist, and I had a store, and I had just gotten divorced, so I was kind of an angry person, and with the world, and I was coming home from my pharmacy one night. I was in suburban New Jersey, a town called Springfield, and I had a little Volkswagen. Yes, I fit perfectly in a Volkswagen. I'm 6'5" because the roof is kind of arched. Anyway, I was at a traffic light, and some guy pulls to the left of me. It's kind of a one-way thing, and he pulled to the left of me. He's revving his engine again. It's a long time ago, and I was an angry person, and he gave me a bad sign with his finger, and then he revved his engines, and he peeled out, and I peeled out, and we were drag racing. and we went from a 25-mile-an-hour zone to somewhere around 55, 60 miles an hour. And I had no fears, and I'm drag racing, and it was August of '74. It was dusk, about 8 o'clock at night, and it was a little hard to see, and the road curved sharply. So the guy hit me, and my reaction was I steered away from the hit. But you take a Volkswagen at 60 miles an hour with a low center of gravity, and my car then started to roll over. So now I'm rolling over at 50 miles, 55 miles an hour. And I closed my eyes and I said out loud, I know, dear God, I know you're going to take me. Just do me a favor, just like I'm talking to you. Do me a favor, just leave my arms and legs intact and take me. And then there's a thud, and the car's upside down and crushed. I open my eyes and I touch myself, and I'm not up there or down there. I'm on somebody's lawn. And I climb out, and I'm kind of dazed. Not a scratch.
And the car was upside down.
Upside down and crushed and starting to
Did
smoke.
you have your seatbelt on?
There were no seatbelts in 1974.
That's what I thought.
None.
That's miraculous.
None. So there wasn't a scratch on me. And it gets even more interesting. The police came, and ambulances came and stuff. And actually, I did a terrible thing. I lied to the cop. And he said, "What happened?" I said, "Well, I was minding my own business, and some guy, driving, and some guy hit me, and I didn't say I was racing. The guy who hit me obviously left, and then he said, 'Come with me,' and I actually sent the ambulances home. I said, 'There's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine.' I even had a package of chocolate chip cookies in my white lab coat pocket that none of them got broke. Kind of funny. So the cop takes me over and he says,
And they didn't fall out with all the rolling over either.
Nothing.
Oh.
So the cop takes me over and he says, your car went between a tree and a pole. And 6 inches either way, your car hits that, for sure you're dead. But he said, that's not what's interesting to him. He said, unscientifically, it would appear your car is wider than the distance between and the pole. So we don't know how you got through there. And what's interesting is I've taken my wife and son to that tree and pole a few years ago to show them. And it's provable. The accident is on record. The width of the Volkswagen is on record, and we know I went between. So that was a huge thing in my life. Huge, that I just stuck in my back pocket and never took out or thought about it until these things began happening to me. And I'll tell you my other favorite story, that why I wrote Pope Leo. Is in 2016, my wife and sister-in-law and cousin, we planned a trip to go to the Holy Land. At that point, I had been treated for 2 years for my knee. Couldn't walk anymore. I had everything done to my knee that mankind can do, legal and illegal. I mean, I had stuff injected in my knee, and I couldn't walk, and I was walking with a cane. And at the last minute, I said, I can't go with you guys because I can't walk. I'm in severe pain. I got to get a new knee. Got to do something. And they said, well, we'll cancel. And I didn't want them to cancel. So I said, all right, you know what? I'll go. I'm happy about it, but I'll go with you. And cane and pain and all that stuff. But if we go, I need 2 days to do what I need to do. And they said, that's fine. So the first day there, with my cane, and I got permission from a Muslim school, because I'm very spiritual, to climb on top of a school right near the Temple Mount, which is a very holy place of reverence and spirit. And I took some pictures, and I was close to the Temple Mount. Later that day, I went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Beyond holy. As soon as you walk in, you look on the second floor. It's in Jerusalem, and there on the second floor is the hill where Christ was crucified. And then you walk further into the church, and there's a picture of me sitting, waiting to crawl through a little tunnel in the church, because it was like a little tunnel. And I'm sitting there next to my cane. They wouldn't let me take my cane in, and I crawl through a little tunnel, and I get into this little cubicle thing where Christ's casket is, where he was buried, and where he was resurrected from. So I do my little New Jersey meditation, and say a few words of gratitude and stuff. And so be it for that. And then next to the last day there, I needed to go to Nazareth to see Joseph's church and Mary's church. And because I walked so slow with a cane, nobody went with me. They did whatever they wanted to do. So I did Joseph Church, and I did Mary's Church in the basement. There's a wonderful shrine to Mary. Here the world was made flesh. And I did, my little meditations and gratitude and stuff. And I'm walking up the steps, terrible pain, especially bad. And I got up to the main level, and there's a side entrance. And I walk to the side entrance, and I take one step out, and I go, "Oh my God," because I felt something. And they all came running. And I said, "What happened, Calvin?" I said, "I just got healed."
That's incredible.
I got healed. No more cane, no more pain. I can't play tennis, no new knee. It is what it is, but I got healed. And that's completely in front of four witnesses.
Right.
You know?
Well, and other people who knew you too when your knee was still bad. That brings to mind a story in, I think it was 2010. I went to Medjugorje. Are you familiar with that? Okay. Medjugorje is a place, I think this started in the 1980s, where Mary appeared to, I forget how many, 4 or 5 kids. They were teenagers at the time, I think. And miracles happen there. And so it's been quite a pilgrimage site since the 80s. I know of some stories of people who have experienced amazing things there. And I went, I have to say, the thing I was praying for, that was a big fat no, was the answer to that. So, however, I did have a couple interesting experiences. One was the mountains there. Rugged is maybe too strong a word, but they're fairly steep. You have to climb over boulders and things. And like I said, I lived in the suburbs in Minnesota where the land is flat.
Right.
And all of a sudden, over the course of 2 days, I think I went up and down 2 of these mountains 3 times total. Now, you can imagine what I should have felt like. I should have been screaming in pain from using muscles that had never been used in my life. And I wasn't. Never felt a thing. But more interesting was a story more like yours, where I went with a group, and there was a group of us within that group who wanted to go up the mountain again on our own. And somehow it ended up being just me and an older man. And as we were climbing up this mountain together, he said, "I don't believe in miracles, even though I'm experiencing one right now." And he went on to tell me that he has, was it rheumatoid arthritis, maybe? Whatever he had, he said at home he could barely get out of bed. He could barely go up and down the stairs. His, I believe, wife and sister or sister-in-law were with us, and they told me it's really even worse than he's telling you. He's, he can barely do anything. And here he is. He was 65 at the time and just striding up the mountain beside me like he's 18 years old. So it's quite amazing. And do these experiences, I take it you were spiritual before you went to the Holy Land.
Yeah, I've been spiritual the last 10, 12, 13, 14 years. Things began to happen, and it began to form a pattern. No, I was never, quote, spiritual. I did my own thing. I did my own thing with the Maker, and I always did my own thing. I was comfortable with that. But things in my life began to happen, strange things. And it's quick to tell everybody, I am about as regular a guy as they come. I go to Rutgers football games. I go to Rutgers basketball games. I eat tuna subs. I don't eat anything with 4 legs. I stopped doing that because of the environment. So I haven't had a hot dog or a steak since 1975. Powerful.
Wow.
And I love meat and hot dogs and steak and that stuff, corned beef, cabbage. I just don't eat it because it's not good, animals, and I'm a humanitarian. But it's been such a fascinating journey, this spiritual side. And again, I'm a regular guy. I'm not, a typical
So
camp.
what changed 15 years ago? What were some of these experiences that made you go
Well,
from doing your own thing to
sure.
what you would call spiritual?
Yeah, sure. One of them I'm going to read if with this time. There's
Okay.
an excerpt, but uh, uh, how do I explain it? It's like one morning I jumped up. I came down here at 4 o'clock. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what got me down on my computer. I did some stuff, and I stumbled upon an old friend who I thought was an old friend. And I decided to write him at 4:44 in the morning. And I wrote, "Dear Bill, I just found you. We haven't seen each other since the '60s. Is it you?" And it's also 4:44 in the morning. I don't know what I'm doing here. I got to go to work in a couple of hours. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, and I went to bed finally, and a little while later I got up, and there was an email from Bill, who's out in Roland, Missouri. He said, "Yeah, Calvin, it's me. It's unbelievable. You found me in a strange way." And then we communicated. And he said, "Calvin, you haunt me and you intrigue me." And this was the spark in my life. He said, "You haunt me and you intrigue me because when you went out of the way to write me so randomly and told me it was 4:44 in the morning, and he said 4:44 is a major portion of my life because I get up
Interesting.
I
Okay.
get up at 4:44 in the morning. I'm at church and I'm at bingo, and I pull 4:44 as a number, or whatever, and I open up a book and it's on page 4:44. 4:44 is all over my life. So when you wrote me to reconnect after all these years and tell me it was 4:44, I wasn't particularly surprised. I smiled, and that
Hmm.
was a piece of energy. And as I've come to learn all these years, that 4:44 and 111, actually 4:44, according to my friend Bill, whose brother was a priest here in New Jersey at Sacred Heart, big church where the Pope was some years ago. His brother was a priest. He said 4:44 in certain Catholic teachings is tied into angelic intervention.
Oh, interesting. I
Very
didn't know
interesting.
that.
And a lot of people don't know it because it's not, high on the list.
I
And
think that a lot of people feel that sort of thing is kind of, woo woo as opposed to Catholic, but that's
it's
very
there,
interesting.
it's there,
It-
and I've come to learn over the years, these last 10, 15 years especially, that these are powerful ways for a spirit entity to let me know they're here, they're with me, to raise my consciousness to look if I'm on my exercise bike upstairs and I just stop randomly and I look and it's 444 calories or 44 minutes and 44 seconds or the other number 111, it's 111, all over my life. All these things began to happen so wonderfully and magically and mysteriously, and I keep telling everybody I'm just a regular guy. And of course,
Yep.
that is a piece of energy for me to write. There's a tortoise in my hair, a journey to.
And you read my mind. I was just going to ask you to
Yeah, that's.
tell how that led to this book and what this
Yeah,
book is about.
I had to tell. I felt it was a responsibility to tell that spiritual. So the spiritual component of my journey is verbatim in here. It's verbatim in here. I wanted to sell books, so I embellished the character a bit on certain other things, but the spiritual side is me and is my journey verbatim. It's so fascinating. And I got to tell you one more real fast story of healing that's not in here because it happened after this got written. Too bad. It was 2 years ago, January. My grandkids live a mile away. My son and daughter-in-law, and my two grandkids, and they came over 2 years ago on a January 17th. They came over the house, and I was upstairs lying down watching football, and the kids came. Everybody yelled for Grandpa to come, down. So I jumped out of bed. I ran around the second floor, and it's a big steep landing. And I took one step, and I fell down. And I'm 6'5". I fell down 7 steps with such force that when I hit the landing, it then propelled me to somersault. So
Oh
I
my gosh.
somersaulted down 4 more steps with such force I put my hand through the wall and landed on the floor in front of all of them, including the family dog. And what happened? I got up, brushed myself off, and not a scratch on me. And I called all my doctors the next morning because I'm on Eliquis. I'm an AFib patient. Do I need to go get my head, X-rayed? Am I going to have a brain bleed? Am I going to die? So all 4 of these doctors, who are good friends of mine, actually, said, Calvin should have died. Nobody 78 falls down 11 steps and somersaults and gets
Right.
away. At least you break a neck, a back, something. So once again, I knew somebody up there held me.
Is watching out for you, yeah. Which is very much the way I felt when this ram trampled me because, I'm old enough to be knocked, boom, flat on my back. I should have hurt so badly the next day. It could have planted a hoof in my eye and my mouth as it ran over me. I should have felt it in the stomach as it clunked over me. I mean, this thing outweighed me. And absolutely nothing. I was not so much as sore the next day. And that was all 3 of those incidents I told you about happened within the space of about 6 weeks.
Wow.
At which point my husband said, wow, you're really unlucky. And I said, nope, I'm really lucky because clearly someone's watching out for me.
We all have, Laura, we all have that. I've come to learn. Nobody's singled out. Nobody doesn't have that. The problem is we live in a world with so much energy and so much distractions and so much AI and so much modern technology that we forget there's certain spiritual things. I was lucky enough to have been dealt these wonderful things in my life. And so I took my antenna. We all have that.
Well, and I think it's a matter of focus too, that I could have looked at those 6 weeks and said, wow, someone's out to get me. I'm really unlucky. But like even with the dog bite, what happened was we had brought in a second dog, and the one we'd had is a 2-year-old male. The one we brought in was this kind of the same breed, more or less, but kind of scrawny, underfed. 4 years old, so he was older, and he had taken down a coyote in the past. And I think it was my dog who decided to have a little food aggression. And so the 3rd time I broke up a fight, and by the way, we did try and separate them, and they kept managing to get back together. So they wanted to be together, but they also wanted to fight over food. And so the 3rd time when I got bitten separating them, somebody later pointed out, which I had realized, that tooth, those dogs could have ripped off one of my fingers. And it was an accident. They didn't deliberately bite me, but I just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Those jaws could have landed almost anywhere the way I was trying to separate them. And so once again, I said, you know what, a couple little scars on my arm, that's a pretty small price compared to what I could have paid.
Correct.
So once again, I felt somebody was looking out for me.
Correct. Somebody is looking out. We all have that gift. It's
right.
Nobody doesn't have it, but most of us are just too busy to take the antenna and stick it out there.
Well, and it's about how you look at life in general too. I mean, you've talked already about gratitude, and if you face life with gratitude, your life is going to be so much different. I heard read an interesting comment maybe a couple of years ago that when the Israelites set out, the tribe of Judah always led, and the name Judah means praise. And so the kind of moral of the story that this writer drew from this was God's telling us something about how you need to always lead with praise, which to me, thanksgiving, gratitude, that's kind of wrapped into the same idea. And that changes your life when you look at life with, thank you for what I have.
Correct. And you know what? In my life, uh, I do my little incantations several times a day. You know, my stuff. I do my own stuff, my incantations several times a day. Top of my list is gratitude. And I was an AFib patient. That's a nasty condition. I've had 8 cardioversions, 4 ablations. I've taken every drug known to man. I've had it for 15 years. The first 5 or 6 years, I had an ablation, and it's actually in here.
Okay.
The first ablation I have is in here because it's a spiritual thing. The night before I had my first ablation, I was petrified because they go into your heart for 5 hours and up to 5 hours, and they poke around and looking. They try to find the cells that are causing the AFib, the atrial fibrillation. And they look, and if they find them, then they kill them, and then you go into normal rhythm. So, 15 years ago, I had my first ablation, and the night before, I did some interesting stuff. You can read it. I needed help, and I got help. And so I had an ablation, and then it lasted 6 or 7 years. And then it's a progressive disease. It only gets worse. You get older. And then they started giving me meds, and I started getting cardioversions, and then I had more ablations and more meds. And it's nasty. It doesn't kill you. It can, because you can throw a clot. And that's why I had major shoulder surgery with AFib, but it must have been in the period that I hadn't. I was clinically out of AFib, at least for months and months and months. So I had a complete shoulder replacement. And so it actually. And here's the funny thing about it: the positivity and the spiritual side. Finally, last October, a year ago, October, I went into a really nasty AFib, and my heart rate was double what it normally is, and it was just awful. So my doctors, both of them, really good friends. I mean, we go to basketball games together and stuff. I said, Calvin, let's put you in the hospital for 5 days. We're going to try the last drug we have on you. We don't use it a lot because it's very effective when it works, but it could kill you.
That's a horrible choice.
It could kill you. So that's why we keep you in the hospital. We monitor you and we watch. If you throw one of these, you go into another arrhythmia called torsades. And anyway, I just ran out of options. So I wasn't happy about it. I said, all right, let's do it. Put me in the hospital. They put me in the hospital for 5 days. And they gave me that drug called Ticasine, powerful stuff. 3 days, nothing happened. So they came and said, you know what, Calvin, we're going to paddle you. Let's get you out of AFib. We'll take you downstairs. You're in the hospital already. Take me downstairs. They paddle me, to stop your heart. They started. Nothing. 2 days later, I'm still in AFib. All right, Calvin, let's take you downstairs and paddle you again. Take me downstairs. They paddle me. Nothing. Comes into my room. Says, you know what, Calvin? This is great. I should have recorded this. You know what, Calvin? Your body wants to be an AFib. So live with it. Live with it. Go home. Have a Merry Christmas. Live with it. And if symptoms get really, really bad, we'll deal with it. I said, all right. Okay. I mean, I exercise. My lifestyle is not hugely altered. When I'm in AFib. Anyway, I went home. Christmas was nice and New Year's was nice. And then early January, I said to myself, and this embedded in all of this is gratitude. I'm grateful for so many things in my life. I said to myself, I'm going to take my body and restore it to where it was 40 years ago, meaning weight-wise and anything else I could do. Maybe get the same haircut I had 40 years ago. I don't know, and that's what I did for five or 6 weeks. I lost more weight, and my weight was where it was 40 years ago. And I have, I don't know if your husband has this. He probably does. You ever see this, Cardia?
I don't think he has that.
This is an EKG machine, 100% accurate. You get it from Amazon, called Cardia, Kardia. You put your two fingers here and the other two fingers here, hook it up to your phone. Boom, it spits out a perfectly 100% accurate EKG.
I think he does have something that measures his EKG.
Fine. Yeah,
I think I just never see him do it.
So anyway, February, a year ago, I put my fingers on that, and boom, I was in normal sinus rhythm where I've been since. Normal.
And that was basically by getting into better shape again.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I read, I must have read 100 articles on AFib over the years. I mean, I was a pharmacist, but I know all the ins and outs. I don't even smell alcohol. Not that I ever drank much more than a glass of wine. I take supplements and magnesium, and I mean, I know the whole routine, and every day is gratitude.
Yes,
gratitude that I'm normal, and it's a wonderful feeling.
And still very active and healthy at 80, which my grandfather lived to be 96. Wow. And I've always said, even at 96, he was sharp as a tack and he was in great shape, apart from the fact that he was dead. They think he had an aneurysm because he was in great health, even at 96, and his mind was all there. He was, maybe he'd slowed down a little bit, but he was 84, 86, 83, something like that, when his sons had to finally make him stop shoveling his roof in Minnesota. Ooh. He had vertigo. It was an inner ear problem. That's the only health issue he really had. And they're like, Dad, you're constantly losing your balance and you want to be on the top of a 2-story roof in Minnesota. He's like, yeah. They said, no, we don't want you to fall off the roof. But apart from that, he was in great shape. So he was a wonderful man. Do you have your reading ready?
Yes, I do.
I'm looking forward to hearing this.
I do. Sure. It's relatively short, but it's powerful. And are we ready?
Yep, go ahead.
Right. There's a tortoise in my hair, a journey spirit. By the way, just so folks know, this has gotten 11 national awards already.
Congratulations.
Including the Kirkus Star and 10 other national awards. I'm up for a few more, which boggles my mind because I never looked at myself as a writer. But here goes, a kind of a short. All right, here goes. Leading up to the end of July 1989, I was feeling strange, not myself. Sleep was fleeting for days. One night, July 20th, just before midnight, I got on the scale to see I weighed 349 pounds. The last few days, like a mallet pounding reality on my head, I had had a hard time walking upstairs, stopping every few steps to catch my breath. I was so fat, I couldn't even climb stairs. I was dying. That's the cerebral message that accompanied me to sleep that night. Something, that word, got me up Monday morning way before the alarm. I felt almost as if I was being levitated, raised up in bed. Marjorie was sound asleep. My fists clenched as if I felt something warm and comforting inside me. I had a clear vision of what had to be done. I jumped out of bed, walked into Noah's room, deposited my kiss, and went back to wake Marjorie. Are you up? I asked. I hate when you do that. What's so important? I can't explain this. Something is inside me. Today, I take care of all family business. She laughed, knowing my routines. Quoting The Godfather again. What do you mean? Her patience was ebbing away. No more cigarettes. I'll throw them away. I'll drastically diet, and I'll exercise every day. I mean it. Cameron, just do one thing. Diet or stop smoking. No one can do both together. You don't understand. I'm possessed. Possession is a perfect word. Something came into me, filling my senses with more determination than I'd ever experienced. I crushed my cigarettes satisfyingly in my hand. My diet consisted of 500 calories a day, a few pieces of pasta, chicken or fish, fruit and salad, no dressing, no sugar. To keep my mind off from cigarettes, music played in my ear 24/7. Simon and Garfunkel were companions, especially Scarborough Fair and Donovan's Catch the Wind. Perhaps I listened to Donovan 50 times a day. It became my anthem. Every night I'd walk a mile around the development. 2.5 months later, I'd lost 100 pounds. The weight loss was so dramatic that on sales calls, if the account hadn't seen me in a few months, sometimes they didn't recognize me. Rumors abounded that I had AIDS, but my life was saved by something. I know that. My life was extended, given a purpose, a journey. In short time, I'd receive even more dramatic spiritual intervention.
That's an amazing story. I read that you had lost 100 pounds that fast, and I was curious how. I think willpower is usually the hardest thing. What gave you the willpower to eat like that and exercise like that?
It was beyond me.
Mhm.
That was not a component of me. That was a spiritual.
Yeah.
Intervention. To have that kind of willpower and determination. Listen, if I could bottle that and sell it on Amazon, I'd be very rich.
You'd be the billionaire.
Yeah, I would.
So,
I would.
I did want to talk about that book. 10 Things You Learned from a Billionaire. What was his business, by the way?
Okay, so the billionaire I worked for was the owner of Luxottica Group, the eyeglass company. His name was Leonardo Del Vecchio. And it's funny, when I wrote Tortoise, I joined a support group called Bold Authors Network. It's administered by Kay Wagner. In and of herself, she's a best-selling author. We became great friends. And last March, a year ago, she read my Tortoise book. Said, "Calvin, there's books inside there." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, you adopted your son. That's a powerful journey. It's a wonderful journey." And she said, "That's a book." I said, "You know what? You're right. It is." And then she said, "You work for the richest Italian in the world for 25 years. Did you learn stuff?" I said, "Of course I did." She said, "That's a book."
Mm-hmm.
It's a book. He's one of the most successful businessmen on the planet. He's not, Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, although,
Hey, I'd settle for being a billionaire even if I'm not as rich as Elon Musk.
yeah,
I'm not picky like that.
and he had a great vision, and so I started to think about that. And last May, I scribbled down 10 things I learned, from this billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
And my time there, and then not only him, of course, it's the executive team, the vice president, who lives in Minneapolis, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I no longer live there. We're in Tennessee now.
Okay.
But yeah, I
he
spent
had
a lot of years in.
Yes, you're in the Great Smokies.
Yes. Well, not quite. Not quite. We're kind of, what are we, north? Are we northeast or northwest? Regardless, I have my office, if I ever use it, is in the room above our garage. It's this huge room, the length of the garage. And because I'm up so high, I can actually see the Smokies from my office.
Wow.
Yeah, from our backyard, I can't, but up in that room, it's so high that I can see one more layer of mountains.
So
Yep,
nice.
and the farthest one is the Great Smokies.
So nice. Because anyway, Kay and I we talked last June, and I said, "How about you and I collaborate and do this together? You can do the clinical business stuff, and I'll write my Calvin stories about my experience with the billionaire." So in July we started writing it. We finished in August, and 2 weeks before Christmas this got published. There's nothing revolutionary in here, but every lesson here are things we've forgotten on our journey. These are powerful, basic lessons of life and learning and interactions with people. Because listen, everything you do in life, if you think about it, is a sale.
And I think that speaks to one of the points you make in this book is the idea of craft your reputation like you would a fine wine. That's so important. And what are some of the details of that? What would your advice be to people about how to craft their reputation?
Well, your reputation is everything.
Yes.
It's absolutely priceless, and he would always harp on that. Your reputation is everything. You've worked for that. You can take things to the precipice, but don't go all the way. Stop, think, network. Life is a sale, so you got to know how to talk to people. That was one of the most important things I learned. There are four kinds of people who, quote, do the buying in this world, if you think about it. And each person, each category has a different requirement. And if you learn those, you'll learn how to sell to people. Because listen, if you're with four friends, there's four of you, and each person wants to go out to a different kind of restaurant. One wants Italian, one wants Thai, one wants a diner, one wants Asian, and the winner is the guy who's the best salesperson, and that's where you want. Oh, he wanted to go for Italian. That's where you go. You're going for Italian. So, but those are some of the things. Do it now. Do it right. He was a big proponent of that. If you're going to make a decision, you're going to do it, and do it right.
Right. One thing I really liked was his comment that be kind to the people you meet on the way up, because you're going to meet them on the way down. And because my sort of field of expertise became medieval Scotland or medieval times in general, there's a fascinating, I believe it's a wood carving that is from the medieval times, and it shows a wheel. It's called the Wheel of Fortune. It does not involve spelling, but it shows that there's a king on the top and a peasant on the bottom, and maybe two sort of middle level people. And the idea even then was that this wheel is going to turn, and you may be a king today, but you don't know what you're going to be tomorrow. And the people you step on. Now, this is funny. This just sprang to my mind. About 12 years ago, maybe, a friend and I, she was an older lady. She was maybe in her 70s at the time. We went to Scotland together, and we were walking all over, and we were staying in hostels. And we went to this one hostel, and there was this kind of angry young man, very arrogant, full of attitude. I don't even remember what set this off, or I don't remember what he said, but he was just snarky and rude to us. Like, I have no idea why. I think it was pretty clear that he figured, I'm a traveler in a hostel, you're a traveler in a hostel. I can do and say whatever I want because I'm never going to see you again. You can guess what happened. I believe we took off to Stirling or Edinburgh the next day. We got settled in our hostel. We're in the communal room eating. Guess who walks in? And he took one look at us and his face just fell, and he's like, oh no. And I think we just laughed. We're like, we were both old enough to be like, who cares what a stranger says? But he was really embarrassed. And I thought that's a great lesson. You should treat people well, because you don't know when you're going to run into them again, against all odds.
Correct. And invariably, as I've come to learn, that your life is small circles, and invariably you're going to run into these people again, and there's going to be something. And so it's just to do the right thing, and
yes,
network and be kind to those people. That was powerful stuff, because he taught me that, and I used to go when I would go into the office. I'd always hang out with people in the warehouse. They were 3 floors below. They were in the dungeons, so to speak. Nevertheless, I'd go there and hang out with them and spend time with them and care about them and ask questions about their family and genuine caring.
Yes, and that's key, being genuine, not being like, I'm the big man and I'm gonna.
Sure. And then something would come up, and I'd need somebody to find me something, and I'd call one of them, and they'd go the extra mile and find whatever I needed, always, to help me. And it's just this great, and it helped make me very, very successful, because when my accounts needed something, I went to them, and because I cared about them genuinely, and people can feel that, they went the extra mile, and found and did whatever I needed, and I became kind of legendary for doing that kind of stuff. And again, one more lesson I learned from the Billionaire.
Well, and I think it all just comes down, honestly, to character. And as you've talked about spirituality, if you're spiritual, I think you're much more likely to be thinking about things like it matters how I treat people.
Sure.
And it all just starts to flow very naturally. So, I'm just seeing if I had any other questions.
Sure.
Yeah, the secrets of longevity. Can you sum up two or three of them?
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to be 81 in a few months, and I'm functioning at such a high level, writing books, doing a podcast, mentoring students. I'm functioning at such a high level. It's because in 1969, when I was studying pharmacology, I decided I wasn't in the mood to age traditionally. So now, and I read, honestly, I must read 5, 10 articles literally a day on aging and
Hmm.
supplement, and all of that, and diet, and all of this stuff, exercise. It's and dementia is such a thing today. There's so much stuff on dementia, and now there's some, I don't know whether it's real or not. Bill Gates is talking about taking honey and sticking lemon in it. But bottom line is it's a combination of a lot of things. And I tell this to my son all the time. He just turned 40. I said, longevity is a lifelong pursuit.
Yes.
Now, the good news is you can decide at 60 that you really want to take care of things, and you can fix things and make a definite dent and definite positivity, in your outcomes. Even at 60, even at 70, it's never too late to fix things. But it's an awareness. It's being aware. It's reading as much as you can. I read Super Agers. I read WebMD. I'm getting these articles. I keep joining things, and I'm reading all this stuff. So it's supplementation. It's exercise. I've been exercising voraciously for the last 25 or 30 years, tremendously.
Hmm.
I did my routine the other night, 2 hours. I do that 3 times a week, weights and yoga, riding the exercise bike full throttle for 47 minutes. Now I'm doing a whole bunch of balance exercises. You just keep, the body wants, exercise. So I'm doing exercise. Unfortunately, I stopped eating red meat in 1975. I think that's helped. I think that helps.
I find that interesting for a couple of reasons. One is, of all the diet fads, one of them is going totally carnivorous, whereas the opposite is going completely vegetarian. And that kind of leads me to, I wonder if you've ever heard this, I guess I could call it a theory, that your blood type has huge impact on what kind of food you need. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, I never heard that. I never heard
It
that.
was, yeah, it was something I came across. I was playing in an orchestra and the trumpet player told me this. And where, so A, B, and O, that one of these needs meat, another thrives on vegetables, and I forget what the other two are.
Really interesting.
Now, my sample is only him and me, but our blood types matched perfectly what the book said we need and want to eat. So I just find that interesting
That is
theory.
interesting. I and you know what? The jury's out, and no one will ever be able to tell me whether I was right or wrong. Uh,
Hmm.
I became quote a flexitarian, as I said,
What is that?
flexitarian.
Flexitarian?
Flexitarian. Some people hear it, they think, "Oh, you Presbyterian." I said, "No, no, 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 I'm not no." Flexitarian is somebody who doesn't eat anything with 4 legs. So I do eat chicken,
Okay.
and I do eat turkey, and I do eat fish, and
Hmm.
vegetables. I just don't do 4 legs. So
Okay.
and again, I've been doing this since 1975. And listen, there's a lot of doctors who say it makes no difference. Uh, uh, I don't care what they say. I know it's
Right.
making difference.
Well, and that was something that I was thinking about too, as I was reading up on, all these various things in your life. is that you hear about George Burns, who smoked and drank every day, lived to be what, 100, 102, something like that.
10
He's still
cigars,
in great health.
10 cigars a day he smoked. But that's that there's something in his makeup that something in his genetic makeup that didn't like cancer and oral cancer, lung cancer, whatever. So
Right.
so the whole picture of longevity, Laura, is 10 to 20% of the picture is genetic, but the other
Right.
80, 90% is lifestyle and
Well, and that was what I kind of was trying to think how to phrase the question, because on the flip side, you hear about these 45-year-olds who are eating healthy, they're living healthy, never touch alcohol or tobacco, and they dropped dead of a heart attack when they're 45 jogging one morning. So I was interested in what kind of a percentage that was. And that's very good news for me because my grandparents all lived to be very old. Even the one who smoked up a storm, she lived to be, I think, 73. She would have lived a lot longer if it weren't for emphysema. So I used to tell my music students, I said, my grandfathers both lived into their 90s. I'm going to be around a long time, so you better learn that piece, or when you're 70, I will still be here. And I will still be telling you to learn that piece. So I think I scared a couple of them. But where can people find you online?
Okay, I have a nice social media presence. I'm on LinkedIn. Really nice presence on LinkedIn. I just started a newsletter on LinkedIn. I'm doing my 7th edition tomorrow. They're funny stories. They're great stories. It's funny. You look back. Wow, I did all these really interesting things, but you never realize it. But anyway, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm Calvin Schwartz on LinkedIn. On Facebook, I'm Cal Schwartz. Easy to find because there ain't too many of me. Maybe 5 Calvin Schwartzes in America, so I'm really easy to find. And I have a website, calvinschwartz.com. And of course, Conversations with Calvin, We the Species on YouTube, where I have those 800 videos floating around. So easy to find, and I'm very responsive.
That's fantastic. I envy your ability to manage time. And in my defense, I'll say, sometimes I go outside, I'm supposed to have only an hour's worth of work on the farm, and I find a sheep, keeled over, and I have to deal with that for the next week, which has happened. And so you can find me at booksandbrews.net. The videos, if you're watching this, you know where to find the videos at Books and Brews on not Facebook, YouTube. My books are at lauravosica.com. My sponsor is GabrielSornPress.com. Lots of great authors, great books, and you can see those wonderful animals at, I can't believe I still have to look at my notes, glenmerrillfarms.wordpress.com. So coming up next, I don't know if I'll have her video up before or after I get yours up, but my most recent interview on the Full Books and Brews podcast is Laura Creedle, writing horror. Coming up, we have J.K. Divya, writing dark fantasy, mythological horror, and paranormal. We have Barry Black, a former FBI master bomb technician. I think that's going to be fascinating. In July, we have Randy Lurch, who is a former Major League Baseball player, and I believe his book is about getting out of kind of a downward spiral in life. I don't want to give specifics because I could be wrong. And in September, we have Charles Graham, who writes sci-fi based on his life in military and search and rescue. And we have more than that lined up for Books and Brews Light. I just didn't write them all down. So lots of great stuff coming up. And thank you very much for being on the program. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, here's my cheers. Cheers.